Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods on another cold and wintry night here in Boston. I'm Joe Heisler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios in Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, like every night on Talk of the Neighborhoods, well, all politics is local, even Washington politics. And tonight we'll talk about the potential impact of federal budget cuts on Boston, on Massachusetts, indeed the whole New England region. Joining me in the first half, the Vice President of Operations for the largest anti-poverty agency in New England, and they're scheduled to take a major cut to their operations, depending upon what Congress does. We're back with Talking the Neighborhoods, and tonight, all politics is local as usual, but as of course the late great Tip O'Neill, congressman from Cambridge, and of course former Speaker of the U.S. House, said, but especially in this political year, especially since the federal elections, the state elections here saw a sea change in the Congress, and now serious talk of cuts to, well, just about every line item you can think of in the federal budget. Tonight, joining us, two men whose agencies, of course, follow this closely in this first half hour. The largest anti-poverty agency in New England is located right here in Boston, ABCD it is, and of course, they've been providing services to poor people, low-income people for, decades now, since their advent in the 60s, 70s. And in this first half hour, joining us, the man who's Vice President for Field Operations for ABCD from Boston, the Mattapan, Michael Vance joins us. And Michael, nice to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you. Well, your agency goes back, you don't quite go back that far, but and have seen some ups and downs over the years, but have you ever quite seen anything like this? I mean, if the numbers we're reading and hearing about coming out of Congress are true, we could be talking about millions of dollars. Is that correct? And, that is correct. And tell us what's really at stake here.
All right. Well, there's two things that are really at stake. One is the continuing resolution, which is right now, which is the budget.
Right. This fiscal year.
This fiscal year, Congress did not finish its business. So what we're on is what's called a continuing resolution. So on March 4th, 535 people will make a decision about the future of millions of people in the United States. And essentially, the Republican-led Congress has suggested or proposed and even passed already last Saturday major cuts, about $63 billion worth of cuts to discretionary funding.
From this current fiscal year?
From this current year. So what that really means is if you have a 10% cut, you have a 20% cut because you're halfway through the year. Our year will end September 30th, so we're practically 6 months in. So basically what they have proposed is 50% or 46% to be correct, 46% reduction in the funding that operates all of our neighborhood sites here in Boston.
And as they refer to it as a non-essential, or depending upon who you listen to, non-essential line items. In other words, non-entitlement line items.
Exactly.
But how would that impact ABCD?
Well, what it would mean would be that all the neighborhood sites which I oversee essentially would be out of money on March 4th. Because we have spent at the same rate. But every neighborhood does fuel assistance, does EITC, tax preparation, does summer jobs. The puts kids to work every summer, case management. But every site in every neighborhood that we have is a little bit different. So in some neighborhoods we do after school, Head Start, elderly programs, depending on what the need of the community. But essentially on March 4th, they would be out of business because we wouldn't have the money to continue at the level that we have right now.
This is in virtually every neighborhood in the city, is that correct? How many centers do you operate?
Well, I have staff at 17 different sites throughout the city of Boston. So in the North End, in the West End, in Charlestown, in East Boston, there is an ABCD center that provides services to the low income.
And that's just this year. Of course, they're also talking about next year, perhaps even more dramatic cuts.
Yeah, I mean,
of course, it's tough to think about
I know, getting past
tomorrow when today is so dire, right?
Absolutely. The fight will continue if we survive past March 4th. Unfortunately, this year, our president, who we support and most folks support around, in his State of the Union address, kind of threw us under the bus. He said, my friends, community action, maybe that's an area we can cut. So he's proposed a 50% cut for next year, which 50%, people say, wow, you got 50%, that's still a lot of money. But what he proposed also was eliminating the formula for the states so that it would go out to bid, similar to his race to the top, which, by the way, Massachusetts didn't get any of that money. So that means it may or may not come to our state, to our city, and so on. So we have that problem as well.
So you're really getting it from both sides. Now, when you talk about eliminating, these programs you're talking about, what are we talking about? How many people do you serve from your sites, and how many people do you employ?
Well, in Boston, ABCD employs about 1,000 employees. Now, obviously, all of them aren't under CSBG.
Right.
But we probably have 100 to 200 employees depending on what time of year. If you add in summer workers, then that last summer we put to work almost 3,000 kids.
Right.
So if you put all those together, there's a lot more jobs. But in terms of programs that would be eliminated, there is no fuel assistance, even though it's a centrally run program. All the applications come out from all the different neighborhood sites.
Right, and so if they're not open to take those applications, and in terms of the numbers of low-income people you serve, and that's primarily your audience, right? Your target group, I should say.
Well, close to 100,000 individuals we touch a year, probably 50 some odd thousand households. The majority are fuel assistance. We probably see about 26,000 families in fuel assistance. Wow. But the numbers just keep going from there. But we have, ABCD, like I said, is large, but from Head Start up to our college, we have 2 alternative high schools that depend on some of the funding. We have a substance abuse high school. And
of course, with the recession and a lot of people being out of work, I'm guessing your numbers are just, well, they could be going up continuously.
Absolutely. Well, there's in Massachusetts alone, there's 287,000 people on fuel assistance. I mean, that's a lot of folks in the state of Massachusetts. And if you listen to the budget director, Jacob, for the president, he says, well, the price of oil is the same as it was in 2008, so that's why we proposed a cut. But they didn't take into consideration that there's more people on fuel assistance than there was in 2008. So it just doesn't, the logic doesn't make sense.
And it might be unfair, but of course, what's more disappointing, of course, many Republicans, and they weren't elected here, but across the country were were elected on a platform of cutting the budget or helping moving towards a balanced budget, and so I guess that shouldn't be surprised. Were you kind of blindsided by President Obama?
Yeah,
fair to say?
It's very fair to say we were blindsided, especially since we received awards for all the work that we did with weatherization. I'm talking about community action agencies across the country. We were the only ones that delivered during the stimulus money in terms of getting the money out to people and putting people back to work and doing all those kind of things. And then for this to happen, it just caught us completely off course.
Now, and you mentioned the stimulus money. Has that gone away, or is there are any of these cuts they're talking about actually stimulus money? That's
some of it is. It depends on the programs. There is stimulus money still in weatherization. There's stimulus money still in Head Start. But generally, for the money that we used in Boston to do projects specifically in the neighborhoods, that money ended October 1st.
Right, so you're operating on regular budgets. Again, tonight on Talk of the Neighborhoods, as we look ahead to this new year, well, the future is cloudy, to say the least, at least for those dependent upon federal funding. And joining me in this first half, talking with the Vice President, Operations for ABCD, which is the largest anti-poverty agency here in New England, and certainly here in Boston and Massachusetts. If you care to join us, the number's right there on the screen. Again, you're watching Talk of the Neighborhoods here on the Boston Neighborhood Network. All that said, now, of course, there's a lot of talk, even that there could be a government shutdown because, of course, the Democrats who have opposed, at least all the Democrats in the House of Representatives opposed the $61 billion in cuts, or at least that resolution, I should say. And the Senate, many people expect not to go along with it either.
Correct.
So what do you see as a possible or likely outcome here? Are we, as some have suggested, headed for a government shutdown as happened back in 95, 96? Or do you expect to see some compromise here and maybe some cuts, but some ray of hope as well?
All three. Truly, I expect government to shut down, whether it's a day, an hour. I believe that that's what it's going to take for people to get back to the table. I don't think the Senate is going to accept what the House has proposed. I don't think the President is going to sign what the House has proposed. But I do believe that there will be that initial impasse.
Right.
I do believe that people will go back to work, and I also believe that there will be some cut. How deep is really what the question is going to be, because no matter what the cut is, one, it's a cut, but two, it's retroactive back to October 1st.
Right.
So that you double that number. We're at March, so 20% becomes 40%. So no matter what it is, it will be painful. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of you're still in business? Possibly. You're around to fight another day, so that's a good thing.